to overcome that, to find the strength, the wisdom, the courage, the hope to transform all of our lives with music. We continue our recovery month. In fact, today is our last Sunday. And it is a month that was designed by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration. Recoverymonth.gov is a place where you can go to find resources for yourself or for family members in need. And it has been an amazing month. Today we're focusing on the Serenity Prayer. The Serenity Prayer. It's one of the most widely known prayers in existence. It was written by a guy named Reinhold Niebuhr, and it was published in 1951, but we know he used it in a sermon many, many years before then. Now, what's interesting to me about Reinhold Niebuhr is Reinhold and his brother Richard were two men who were theologians in the United States at the time of the Second World War. And what's interesting to me about Reinhold was he was so persistent on being a centrist, He was angry with those with liberal thought. He was angry with those who with conservative thought. And this prayer was a good message for them at that time. Seems kind of interesting to me that it seems as though we have reached a time where we could use Reinhold's prayer again. We need to be a nation that has a willingness to find a way to find the words to bring strength, hope, courage, and wisdom to all kinds of situations. Reinhold Niebuhr found a way to do that, and that prayer lives on. It lives on for many on a daily basis. Pretty popular prayer, not as popular as the Lord's Prayer, but a close second. He created this prayer as a way of just having a closing prayer for a message that has transformed the world because he opened himself up to the powerful possibilities of God. Let's go ahead and throw the prayer up on the screen in its original form, we believe. And let's say it together, shall we? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace. Taking, as he did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever in the next. Amen. Beautiful prayer. That's in its entirety. You can find it online. You can find it different places. As we know, you received a card with the portion that's most popular and used most often in the world today. We have been blessed this month with people who have been willing to share their stories of experience, of strength, of hope, of powerful possibilities that are available if we have the courage to turn our life and our love over to God. And today we are blessed to have another story. So I'm going to invite forth Lori to share in the message today.
Can you hear me? Oh, yay. I've never had one of these on, so bear with me. So good morning, everybody. I feel honored. Thank you for asking me to share my experience, strength, and hope on the Serenity Prayer. Anybody know how to hula hoop? I do not. I could not as a child. But I have learned some things from another tool of the hula hoop. So I'm going to share. Can I ask one of my friends to put a timer on me for 15 minutes so that I don't go over? Do you guys mind? Yeah, seriously. Okay, so I am a person in the politically correct thing to say in an open forum in long-term recovery. I've been sober by the grace of God in a 12-step fellowship for 22 years. My sobriety date is, thank you, because I never thought in a million years that I would get sober because I wasn't exactly like Ray Charles, but I was so similar to him. My sobriety date is February 15th, 1997. So I'm going to go back a little bit, and, I was thinking about this last night. It's always been my inability to deal with life on life's terms. Again, I'm going to say that. It's always been my inability to deal with life on life's terms. When I was 13 or 14 years old, I can't remember, but I lost my grandfather. I went to school one day. I was a freshman in high school. I went to school, and I came back, and my grandfather was gone, just like that. And I can remember he was working on my mom's car, and he forgot to lift the door up in the garage. And so at that time, I didn't have tools. I didn't have tools or the ability to know how to deal with loss. And so that's when if I think about it, that's when I started drinking and doing a little marijuana at that time, and it was okay. It made me feel like I could kind of deal with life on life's terms. And so that was the course of my life going forward. Anytime things didn't go my way, anytime you didn't do what I wanted you to do, anytime I prayed, because I was raised in the church and my prayers weren't answered, I turned to drugs and alcohol or destructive behaviors. And so the course of my path wasn't horrific. It really wasn't. When I think about it, I'm an only child, which can be good and bad for an alcoholic like me, because they always tell us that, we're selfish and we're self-centered. And so you throw that only child in there, and that will maximize that times 1,000. But I've learned in recovery some tools that have given me the ability to deal with life on life's terms. You're going to hear me say that a whole lot, because what the Serenity Prayer has done for me is it's given me a little bit of peace. Because really, when I think about it, that's all I ever really wanted. I wanted to know how to walk on this earth and not feel like I was inadequate, not feel like I was lost, not feel like a failure. So when I was in school, I was not trying to toot my own horn, but I will, beep beep. I was pretty good in school. Me being the only child, when you're an only child, you're the only one that your mom has. So I knew how to play the game. I knew how to keep my grades up. I knew how to stay on honor roll. I was very popular in high school. I was always on the volleyball team, or I was captain of the Silverettes, and so my life looked good. So it always looked good on the outfit, on the outfit, oops. On the outside, oh my God, right? So speaking of outfits, I always thought as long as I look good, I'm good. But you know what? I knew how to dress it up on the outside, but I didn't know how to take care of the inside. So this 12-step program that I talk about, I'd never heard the Serenity Prayer in my life. And all my upbringing in church, we would sing, Jesus loves me, this I know. Oh my God, I love that. I just love that little song. And when I'd heard the Lord's Prayer, because we would do that, but when I walked into this 12-step program, I heard this Serenity Prayer. And when it said, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, I was like, wow, I've never been able to accept anything with serenity in my entire life, So I'll tell you a little bit about the ending, what brought me to the 12-step program. I had a great job. I was a mom, single parent, had the home, had the car. My mom was semi-proud of me because she knew in her heart, Parents are always the ones that don't want to accept the things they really cannot change. She didn't want to accept the fact that her daughter really did have a problem, right? She probably thought, oh, well, she just drinks a little too much. But my ending story is this. Life had gotten so bad, I'd never been arrested by God's grace, I say that, I'd never lost a job by God's grace, But I'll tell you what, when I got to that place, because what they tell people like me, if you're anything like me, that it always will get worse, it will never get better. I didn't understand that. They said this was a progressive disease. And I thought, disease, what does that mean, disease? And so that's what I learned. I learned that I wasn't a failure. I learned that I wasn't a horrible person, but that I had been born with this disease, unlike my mother, that she could drink a pina colada and still be a lady, right? I wanted to be like my mom, but I was not like my mom. So it did get worse for me. What happened is at the very end, right before I got sober, I wanted to commit suicide. And I'm going to say that again. I wanted to commit suicide. That's pretty intense, don't you think? I had a 5-year-old little girl. God, she was gorgeous. And I looked at that little girl and I thought, what mother would leave her child? So I thought I'd better take her with me. That's how bad it got. But I'm so grateful to my God because I had 1% to 2% of sanity at that moment, and I knew that that was not the way to go. So I had heard this commercial, and now I'm going to really date myself. And I hate doing that, by the way. There was a place called Koala. Anybody ever heard of Koala? On the commercial, it would say, if you can't get help at Koala, please get help somewhere. And I would be so intoxicated, and I'd hear that commercial, and I would say it all the time. But let me tell you what my God did for me. That commercial always stuck in my head, so that's the place I called when I got to that place where I wanted to commit suicide and take my child with me. How devastated would my mom have been, right? So I went to Koala, and I got a little bit of help, and I walked in, and I thought, my gosh, these people have issues, not like me. Because, what we want to do is alienate ourselves. I am not like that person. Like I said, I'd never been arrested. I'd never lost a job. My life looked pretty good. So, I stayed there about 3 or 4 days. All was good. And I was introduced to some people that had enough love, enough courage, enough experience, strength, and hope to come in and bring 12-step meetings into that facility. And that's how I was introduced to a 12-step program. So, I got sober. 6 months into my sobriety, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. 6 months into my sobriety, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. Now, I told you back when I was 13 or 14, it was always my inability to deal with life on life's terms. So God placed this woman on my path. We call them sponsors. And my sponsor looked at me and she said, you do realize your mom's going to die. My mother had multiple myeloma, which is cancer in the bones. And she didn't tell me for a very long time because she was afraid, because my mother knew in her heart that it was always my inability to deal with life on life's terms. So she tried to hide that and conceal that from me. But you know what recovery does? Recovery gives you the opportunity to grow up and face life on life's terms. So you see, I have the hula hoop down, and I'm walking around this hula hoop. And the reason I'm walking around the hula hoop is because my mother having cancer, I couldn't do anything about that. My mother was going to die. And my sponsor said, and this doesn't give you permission to drink. When I was 32, my grandmother died of Alzheimer's. I drank. When I was 34, my dad died of brain cancer. I drank. But when my mom died, I'll tell you what, that's when I started using that serenity prayer when she was going into treatment like nobody else's business. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. My mom's not going to get better. God help me to be okay with that. Give me the courage to change the things I can. The courage to change the things I can is right inside my hula hoop. My thinking, my level of acceptance. Anything that's outside of my hula hoop, I have absolutely no control over. So I had to learn to have the courage to change the things I could. I had to learn to connect to a God of my own understanding, which is so awesome, because I'll tell you what, I was raised in a church where I wasn't really given the permission to have a God of my own understanding. But you know what? I learned within my hula hoop how to feel, how to cry, how to just wail out and say, God, I need help. Help me. Because, see, if I picked up a drink or a drug, guess what? It wasn't going to change the situation on the outside. So the beauty is like the wisdom to know the difference, right? Because sometimes, anybody else feel like, I don't know if I should turn left or I don't know if I should turn right? And that's what I love about the Serenity Prayer. The Serenity Prayer, you know, it says, grant me the serenity. That means peace. And oh, by the way, I learned that just because I have to accept a situation does not mean that I have to like it. Very often I do not like anything that I cannot control. Very often I do not like when I pray, and let me say, I prayed that God would make my mother better. So when my mother died, I was super angry with God. I was so angry because after all, I prayed. But you know what? Looking back in hindsight, my mom wasn't going to get any better. And what I know today is that my God did do just what I prayed for. He took away her pain. And he also gave me the courage to accept that I was going to be okay. Because remember, I go back to the same situation. It's always been my inability to deal with life on life's terms. I learned how to deal with my mom's death sober. When I was at my dad's funeral, I was an embarrassment to my family. I can't really remember my dad's funeral because I was that intoxicated. But I'll tell you what recovery has done for me is it has made me a woman of integrity. So when I was at my mom's funeral, she would have been so proud of me, I got to say, right? But I was able to stand up and I was able to speak at her funeral. And on my mom's card, the Serenity Prayer had been ingrained in me for like that first year that I had that printed. You know, when it has their name and then it has their birth and the death. That was what was printed on my mom's card. So I sat there before I spoke and I kept saying, and I kept saying it over and over again, God grant me strength, accept things I cannot change, courage change things I can, and wisdom no difference. God, help me. Because all I really wanted was just to be okay. Because if I'm honest, that's all I ever wanted in my life was just to be okay. And so, let's fast forward. You know what's so cool about being in recovery? And I have fun, by the way. Like, I'm the crazy person in recovery. That's why I really didn't want to stop drinking and doing other things. Is because I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be sitting on the sideline, boring. And I am not, by the way. I am not. I like to have fun because if I didn't have fun, I don't think I would have stayed sober. But you know, the beauty of recovery is God has blessed me, has taken me with some of the worst things I've ever done in my life and given me the ability to share that out with other people. So I've got some women that I work with by God's grace. I get to work with, and about 3 of them lost their parents. And I got to say the same thing, honey, this doesn't give you permission to drink. And so I watched them get through and walk through hardships. And part of that Serenity Prayer, and I didn't like that piece where it says, you know, hardship is the pathway to peace. It's like, who says that? But you know what? When my mom passed, I got to say, I grew up. But before my mom passed, and when she was lying in that bed, and I said, Mom, are you going to be okay? And she said, I just want to make sure you're going to be okay. And with every fiber of my being, I said, I will be okay, Mom, and I'm going to make sure your granddaughter's okay, too. When I think about what recovery has done for me, it's given me not only the ability to deal with like hard stuff in life, but to share that stuff out with people that are bleeding. Because people like me, it is always our inability to deal with life on life's terms. We want to escape. Didn't you see Ray up there? He just wanted to escape, man. And when I watched it, I thought, oh my God, I remember just wanting to escape. If I could just escape for a minute. But today, when things happen, I just had to put my dog down about a month, maybe a little bit over a month ago. And I don't know, if you're not a dog lover, animal lover, I feel sorry for you, all right? So I had this beautiful little poodle mix. I had her for 15 years, and here's the deal. She too had cancer. I said, oh my God, everybody in my love life, they pass out with cancer. But let me say, I have to change the way I think. You see, I'm in this hula hoop. I got to change the way I think, because if I do not, I'm headed for trouble. So when my dog started losing weight and she's moving, we're walking, and we're taking walks like this. She's just moving along. And I thought, God, something's wrong with her. I said, God, please reveal to me with serenity. See, whenever I ask God to reveal something to me today, I always say with serenity, because one time I asked God to reveal some things to me, and I didn't say with serenity, and it took my breath away. So today I always say, God, please, with serenity, please reveal to me what I need to know. The bottom line was she had cancer. I took her to the vet. I didn't know how sick she was, though. And at that visit, she says, honey, do you want to put her down today? And I thought, oh my God, right now? Is she that sick? So I took her home, shared it with my mom, but I had promised that little dog when I saw her going down that I would have the courage to do what was going to be best for her. And see, that's what recovery has done for me. It's made me less selfish. It's made me less self-centered. But as long as I stay right in here, right in this hula hoop, and I don't try to control all these outcomes, because when I'm controlling outcomes, it makes me super psycho and crazy, right? My friend just did this. Absolutely. Yeah. So I did that, and I took care of her, and, I miss her like crazy. But, today what I do is I have to flip my thinking quickly. I am so grateful that my God gave me that little dog for 15 years. I am so grateful that my God gave me a mother for 35 years that absolutely adored me and got to see me sober for a year. How cool is that, right? I am so grateful. Yes. I am so grateful that I raised my daughter in a sober home, that I knew, because, man, I'll tell you what, when she transitioned and turned 13, oh my God, I was like, who are you? So when I saw the little girl just scoot over here and sit, I thought, that's the little ones that I love, right? And so when my daughter became the teenager, I thought, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I want to. I'm going to send her to her dad. And we co-parented that child. But, when I think about it and I look up and I think about my mom, I think, wow, she'd be super proud of this little young lady that did get over the teenage years. And she's turned out to be a dynamic woman. And I don't take credit for that. I take it like this. I go, God, you took the sordid pieces of my life back here, and you taught me not to be ashamed of them. But you showed me another way to live. And you told me as long as I learned to accept those things that I could not change and have courage to change the things I can, and to know the wisdom that I was going to be okay. And see, today, even through hardships and joys and sadness and excitement and crazy and everything, I have a great life, guys. I get to stand here and I get to speak to people and share my experience, strength, and hope. So I'm going to say this. I'm a peer recovery coach now. I worked at Eli Lilly for 28 years in clinical trials. Retired. God, I'm aging myself. Retired. And then I'm doing peer recovery coaching part-time. What that is being a peer to somebody that could be struggling with substance abuse, could be struggling with alcoholism, could be just struggling with the inability to deal with life on life's terms. And so recovery has given me so much, right? So when I'm feeling gray and I'm feeling sad, I do a gratitude list, because gratitude lists give me that ability to change my thinking, because after all, it all starts right in here. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your time. I hope that was 15 minutes.
Let's say it together. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We gave you a card when you walked in today. Take that card with you. If it's not for you, it's for someone in your life. Take it with you, because there is always hope. As long as you have life and breath and movement, the God of grace, love, and hope is talking to you. So I encourage you, or it could be someone you know, to open your heart, your mind, and your very being today to the love of God, love greater than we'll ever know. This serenity prayer has been used in Dan Brown's book, Angels and Demons. It's also been used by people like 50 Cent and Sinead O'Connor and Whitney Houston and Boston. People get this prayer. This prayer makes a difference, not only in our own lives, but in the lives of many musicians.